Super Beets Heart Chews offer a convenient, delicious, plant-based way to support healthy blood pressure and circulation. And because it's natural, there are no stimulants and no jittery feeling. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews on all bundles and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using code RANDOM. I happen to know beets are actually very good for you. That's getsuperbeets.com, code RANDOM. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there is no minimum credit score required. Get a free debt analysis right now at pds.com/random. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/random. pdsdebt.com/random. Yes, General Butt Naked.
Mm-hmm.
Who's he? Did you ever interview him?
I did.
General Butt Naked?
Yeah.
Club Random.
You brought it all around. You brought it all around. That's what Trump calls a weave.
Whenever,
you just did a weave.
Exactly.
Club Random.
Shane, I haven't seen you in minutes. Well, how have you been? How's the family?
Good, thank you.
How is the family? Last time I talked to you, you and your wife were getting over a case of some sort of parasite in your colon.
Oh yeah, that was me. Yeah.
You. I thought you passed it to her or something.
No, well, I had a flesh-eating parasite in my stomach that I got in Afghanistan. And they always say, whatever you do, don't drink yellow tea in Afghanistan.
Oh, don't I know it?
And and I was interviewing the head of the Taliban, and he's like, have some tea, because it's a cultural thing. And you're like, no, thanks, I'm not, And they're like, have the tea. And then there's silence in the room. So you're like, well, I guess I'll drink the tea. I drank the tea, cut to me, getting the butt drill, and where they check for parasites. And I had the doozy of all parasites.
But it doesn't affect them because they're so used to it?
I was supposed to get exactly. Yeah. So I was supposed to get
like Mexico.
Like Mexico, Montezuma's revenge.
Right.
There you go. Water, which, by the way, I've had many times as well. I have a lot of laws about traveling. One is the worse the GDP, the better the chicken, because it's like Yardbirds, and so the chicken, you're like, this chicken is delicious, but also the more you need a toilet, the worse that toilet's going to be. So
that's so true.
If you're in sub-Saharan Africa, it's just going to be arcing ropes of shit everywhere.
Well,
but if you're in Japan, where you're just going to have a perfect it's got like songs, and it'll wipe and blowing airs. And,
it's got songs.
It's got songs. Yeah, you press a button.
No, I know. I've been to people's houses here in wealthy Los Angeles where I, rarely leave except for other parts of America, which is why I admire you so much. And I can't figure out how to use the toilet.
Yeah,
it's so complicated. It's like I have to sheepishly walk out and say, "Listen, my pee is in your toilet. Thank God it wasn't nothing more severe, but because I just can't figure it out."
I am addicted to Japanese toilets. I must. I have PTSD from so much time on the road and so many stomach parasites. So Japanese toilets are my one luxury.
If people don't know what we're talking about, I mean, Vice, which started out, of course, as a magazine in Canada and then became this awesome show, which I had the honor of being an executive producer on, which means I did very little and slapped my name on it. But you and your crew and your intrepid reporters, but you leading them as the general, went all around the world to the worst places. I mean, that's what Vice was known for. It's why it was such an awesome show. Oh. And it was on HBO for how many years? 5? 7?
7 years.
And, you would go to Venezuelan prisons.
Sure, yeah.
And you would go to Afghanistan. Sure. And you would go to Somalia. And it's amazing that you don't look any worse for the wear. Really.
Thank you.
But you got rid of the parasite?
Yeah.
How do you get rid of that thing?
Just very, very strong antibiotics, which, probably will make me grow thumbs out of my back when I'm older, but,
yeah,
there you
good.
go. No. Yeah, there was those were the good old days when how that's all started was we were in Iraq, and it was we were shooting the only heavy metal band in Baghdad, and it was not a political thing, but we were there when W went and said mission accomplished, and he was in the green zone and we were in the red zone, and everyone was shooting at us, and we're like, the war is not over, and they're like, see, that's real news, and we're like, real news? We're talking about heavy metal. And so what we decided to do is, just go there. Production is just a plane ticket. So we're just $2,000. I think I flew to Liberia for $600 on Belgian Air, and we went to because we had done this story in Vice where a where a container had been stolen from a ship, and it had Tupac Shakur T-shirts in it. So of course it became an army's uniform, the Tupac Army, and they fought General Butt Naked's army, who fought naked, and so that's a very Vice story.
Right.
General Butt Naked versus the Tupac Army. So we're like, well, why don't we just go there?
What do you think, if you had to be forced to move, is the worst place in the world? Where would you least like to have to go? I'm sure it's quite a final
plethora.
four. I mean, like North Korea, Afghanistan. I mean, there's some great contenders for worst country to live in. Of course, the kids here in America, they know the answer. America.
Right.
They live in the best place with all our flaws at the best time in history.
Best time in
And they
history.
think they're living at the worst time,
best time in
in the
history.
worst place.
Best time in history.
That's by far.
Yeah. I was saying that to someone the other day. I'm Gen X, and Gen X were this sort of forgotten generation, and the Boomers are on one side and Z's on the other side, and we had this weird, existence of not being anywhere
Right.
really. And I was explaining to someone, I'm like, if you believe Carl Sagan, which I do, saying, look, there's billions of years and of evolution, billions and billions of planets, right? And there's this one tiny fucking window when humans can exist without mastodons killing us and like getting gutted by like a fucking pitchfork.
Right.
And we live in that sort of one window. And not only did we live in that window, we live in the Gen X window, which was like no war, economic prosperity, you could travel, there's luxury, there's Japanese toilets.
AIDS. I always say the 90s.
Right.
Between AIDS and terrorism.
Right.
Like AIDS, and not AIDS is still around, but
Sure.
like when it became not the terror it was in the 90s, and terrorism was something that was still done. It was still being done in movies.
Yeah, and no
And
big
then-
war, and so lots of
Yeah,
freedom,
Clinton ran.
luxury, travel, seeing the world, great food, foodieism, hipsterism, and now like if you look at the environment, you look at AI going to be a huge disruptor. You look up and you say there's a good possibility that Gen X might have been the greatest single generation to live
luckiest.
in history, luckiest in history. And I'm like, you know what? We should be happy every.
And
fucking
also
day.
the last, I always say that I called Gen X the last sane generation because they were the last free range generation. I mean, I don't know if
100%.
I don't know if you ever read Bret Easton Ellis's book, the last one. It's not a fiction. It's that he wrote a novel that he wrote a novel since, but this one was about 5 years ago. We had him on the show. Not a good talk show guest, but a great writer.
Yeah, great writer.
And he wrote, I think it's called White.
Right. I'm going to read it.
And it's a lot about being a free range kid in the 70s.
Yes.
And
Go.
Yeah, and of course, as a boomer, that was not even discussed. Of course, you were free range.
Yeah, go. Go play in the creek.
I mean, it was actually the reverse was horrible. If you were somehow needed your parents to shepherd you to places.
Yeah.
They were like, I'm not a chauffeur.
Yeah. Life was Stand By Me. You went out, there were dead kids, there were leeches, there were fucking trains, there was, and then you come back going, Mom, I lived! And you just shut up, eat your TV dinner, and go to bed.
And it was fun.
So fun.
So fun.
And
look,
made
us better.
Well, look, I don't know what the fuck happened, and a lot of people have written a lot of shit about this, but we went from literally having no parental supervision to being like, I guess we're known as like the most supervised, I guess, because we didn't have any and we're like there, but for the grace of God, I didn't die. So now we're overly suffocating or something. I don't know. But like, why are our kids so parented and we kind of weren't parented? You know what I mean? I don't understand that.
Well, we weren't over-parented. I was definitely parented. I think they struck basically the right balance. Now, were they a little
Hands off.
light on? Well, like, I remember when I went through puberty, basically, and into like having my first girlfriend. I mean, there was so little discussion of it in the house before, so little of making me feel comfortable with it. My father and I had one,
Birds and bees.
discussion, yes, and I remember he opened it with, "Your mother thinks I should have this talk with you." Right away, the disclaimer. Like I'm distancing myself from this already. Not my idea.
I have to do it.
And but mother thinks we should have a discussion about sex. And I said, "What is it you want to know, Dad?" No, I didn't say that because I certainly didn't know much either.
Right.
We were very innocent in that era, but it was about 3 minutes of the most excruciatingly awkward, embarrassing, and then we both were like, "Okay, we did it. We
got
filled
through
the
it.
quota barely, but we had some sort of thing where the penis goes in the vagina,
Right.
and let's just keep painting the deck," because we were like painting the deck.
Right.
Like he chose that as the moment.
That's the time. We're going to be working, so I don't have to look at you.
Right. We have an activity. It was like a director in a sitcom.
manly
Got to have an
activity.
activity while
A
you're
manly
doing it.
activity.
Yeah. You're unpacking the groceries while you're having the discussion about your marriage.
I got if she comes home pregnant, I'm going to kill you myself, kind of thing. It was like
From
a
your
sort-
father?
Yeah, it was a given. It was a given that probably because.
But did you get the talk about the?
I think.
Do you remember that?
I think he had. I think he knew I knew pretty much everything because he knew how much of his porn I had snuck into.
Your father had porn?
Oh yeah,
Like magazines, old school magazines.
magazines. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
And
grew up on.
and I remember like
Which one?
videos and
Were there
stuff.
Canadian ones? Were there
No, like Playboy.
where the
Penthouse.
pussy was very polite?
I remember. Yeah. Thank you. I remember he had one which was. Do you remember Chicholina? Oh Jesus!
Chicholina.
Bum. Do you remember Chicholina?
I don't.
She was
Chicholina?
Chicholina.
Who is that?
So famous because that's what I said. Would you remember? Speaking of politically incorrect, Cicciolina was an Italian porn star
Oh.
who became a member of parliament in Italy
Oh, yes.
and married.
Oh,
Coons.
I know exactly who you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
I know
didn't
her- I know
didn't
her
know her
intimately.
name was Chicholina.
Yeah, Cicciolina.
That's her real name or her porn name?
I think that's her porn name.
Well, it matters to me.
Yeah. So Cicciolina, he had a Cicciolina tape. So I was like, yeah, that's where I learned how to study politics right
a
there.
tape. Like a
It was
VHS?
VHS, yeah.
And you watched it when they weren't home?
Yeah, well, not when they were home, yeah.
But I
Then that'd be really fucking weird. Oh, Dad, are you listening?
right.
Can you hear the Italian?
And what was it? Was it graphic?
Oh, yeah.
Blowjob?
Mm-hmm.
And then fuck?
Everything, yeah.
Anal?
Probably not.
Right.
Anal's a recent thing.
Not for Chicholina.
Not for Cicciolina.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's bad enough.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, it's Italy. In Greece, that's... In Greece,
Chicholina.
Cicciolina would be where we go first.
Look, Chicholina did not get fucked in the ass, and I'm not going to listen to this.
So that's what I think she said to somebody, Gorbachev,
mean-
or some president, "I will fuck you to stop this war," whatever war that particular
Shane,
war was.
The Italians have had a rough enough week without thinking that Cicciolina got fucked in the ass. Do you know why I say this?
Why?
Well, it was in the news yesterday that Columbus was a Jew.
Oh, God help us all.
Did you see that?
No,
No? They dug him up.
right. Dug him up
Yeah.
and
Columbus.
to do a
buried in
DNA test.
buried in Seville.
Really?
He wasn't originally buried there. He wanted to be buried, I think, on Hispaniola because he discovered it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he never set foot in America, but it's another story. And then they moved the body at some point to somewhere else, and then it wound up in Seville. Is that what I just said?
Yeah.
Seville?
Yeah.
Okay, in 1898, dug him up, did the DNA testing, and of course they can't say for sure that he
Right.
was a Jew. I mean, it wasn't like the skeleton was wearing a yarmulke, but I mean, it was complaining about the air conditioning. Well, he's a skeleton. Come on, he's got no meat on him. Okay, so they said by the DNA, it's very highly likely
Possible.
that he was a Sephardic Spaniard.
Right.
I mean, he
Because
did go on his mission for Spain,
Yeah.
of course, even though they said he was Italian.
He
He
was
probably
paid for.
was born, I think he was born in northern Italy at the time, Genoa,
Yeah.
yes, which was a city-state.
Yes.
But Jews were born all over, as they
Sure.
were, diaspora.
Yeah.
You know, so he could have been that, and but they're saying, and then the drawings of him, I don't know how they get these drawings. I mean, he looks a little Jewy.
I did not see that, but it's very.
No. I
No.
mean, so if the kids needed one more reason to hate Columbus, now
There
that
you
they
go.
hate the Jews too,
There you go.
there you go. It's like the unified theory
Right.
of Jew hating.
Mm.
The colonizers, Israel,
Sure.
Columbus is a Jew hater. I mean, come on. Club Random is brought to you by the audio marketing gurus at Radioactive Media. The daily grind is back, it's fall, and Q4 is upon us. Why don't you do something new and adventurous and utilize a new marketing angle by harnessing the power of audio and partnering with shows like mine? Not like mine, mine. The team at Radioactive Media can drive you new customers by using the power nationally on podcasts, terrestrial, satellite, and streaming radio. Radioactive Media can create a customizable campaign for your company's needs so you can attract new and qualified customers. Radioactive believes so much in the power of audio marketing, they put their money where their mouths are by using it themselves, right here, right now. Mine. Learn how you can experience the power of audio marketing by also utilizing the strength of text messaging, which can generate an ROI as high as 7-to-1. I never believed that when I read it, but apparently it is true. 7-to-1 on an ROI. Fuck, that is a great ROI. Don't fall behind your competition. Go to radioactivemedia.com or text the word RANDOM to 511-511. Discover how audio marketing can surpass your current strategy with new and innovative ways that sound better. Go to radioactivemedia.com or text RANDOM to 511-511. Text RANDOM to 511-511 today. Terms, conditions, messages, and data rates may apply. One of the greatest character builders, i.e. things that suck, is struggling with money. No one wants to think about debt, but the cold hard truth of it is, many people will get deeper in debt during the holidays. Last year, half of American consumers took on debt to pay for the holidays. This year, it could be you. Boy, this is why it's good to be an atheist. It's never too early to start planning to get out. And the people at PDS Debt can help with a personalized solution just for you. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there is no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. Debt sucks. I remember. So start planning today. Get a free debt analysis right now at pds.com/random. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/random. pdsdebt.com/random. Okay, so what are the 4 worst countries in the world to be in?
Look, to go there for a week, it's absolutely fascinating. We were, speaking about sort of
Go where?
North Korea.
Oh.
North Korea for a week.
Oh,
is
yeah,
what-
you went there a couple of times.
a bunch of times, but like to go there as it's like Disneyland for political wonks.
Oh, I remember. That was the Vice episode that got us the most publicity.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Well, if you remember what happened, we had shot the whole season, and we were very proud. We'd done a lot of stuff, done a lot of good work. And then the last thing was, I figured out, because I had been there a bunch, that they love basketball. And if we got, they love the
Right.
Chicago Bulls. And we figured out if we could get the Chicago
Right.
Bulls there, that they would. And so the Chicago Bulls wouldn't go. We called Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. They said, fuck you. But we called Dennis Rodman, and he said, I'm in. I'm signing,
Right.
cards at the.
That's how that Rodman North Korea connection came about. It
We
was
sent
it
him.
was Vice.
Yeah,
It was you.
and we with the Harlem Globetrotters, who by the way are amazing. The Harlem Globetrotters
course.
are like the best ambassadors America could want.
Right.
So we went over, played the national team. It was a tie, and Kim Jong Un came and
Yes,
invited our crew.
I
So
remember.
I remember. So I had, speaking of the stomach parasite, I had a hernia operation that I had to delay because of the stomach parasite. It's right at that time, so you have a good memory. I was in the bath reading the fucking. No, I was reading my phone, I guess. I was reading the paper. No, I was reading the phone. And every fucking news site in the world shat on us from on high. They're stunt journalists, fuck Vice. And by the way, the BBC really shat on us. And they had just got caught for trying to sneak in with a school group. And you're like, you're going to endanger school kids, but I'm the fucking asshole? Anywho.
Oh, that's so infuriating.
Infuriating.
All these elitist, stupid journalists who are like lazy about the most basic things about journalism that they could look up or find out right here in America, shitting on you over in North Korea.
So because they couldn't get in, and so we got this, because everyone gets the same documentary of North Korea because they just give you the same one and everyone has the same one. Anyway, so we got this thing, and I just remember we're just launching the show, and I remember being devastated because everyone was shitting on us. And Plepler called me up. He said one thing. He said,
Plepler, the president of HBO.
Plepler, shout out. You're a fucking genius. I love you.
My favorite.
The last of the great, him and Tom Freston, the last two great
truly
media moguls.
Was always had my back.
And my back, our back.
HBO.
Our back.
And by the way, that job of having the back of people like us is not an easy one.
Not an easy one.
Because in cancel culture, which we lived through and still are living through, they come at you very hard. Like we will picket your office. We'll
put 5 journalists on you.
We will do
look
everything.
At your garbage.
So for a guy to stick up for us meant something. And
shout out to Plepler. One of the last, I always think, last of the great V8 interceptors. You were a fucking mensch. Anyway, Plepler called me when all that shit was going down. And he said, you know what they said about Rome? He said they had a one-word review, Carthage. And he said, look, you have a great show. Don't worry about it. And we launched to a 5. We launched to a crazy number. And I realized, all of that publicity, no one gave a shit about us. No one knew about us except for you. And all of a sudden, we were this popular show because everyone had shat on us from on high. And the first episode, everyone was like, this is fucking awesome.
But also, it was such a great companion show for my show because it was also like, I know this sounds immodest, but like the only place where people could see real shit. So it was like my show into your show. I mean, Vice did not look like anything. I mean, 60 Minutes is the closest thing, and 60 Minutes has done much great work over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Much.
100%.
And they have gone to places that are dangerous, but not the way Vice did. Not as far under the fingernails.
Huge fan of 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
It used to be, the greatest news show ever made.
Yes. The only.
Yeah.
The only, and then, and it's still great.
Yeah.
I still I have not missed an episode of 60 Minutes in the history of that run.
Another shout out, Jeff Fager, who ran 60 Minutes for a long time, did a phenomenal job. But yeah, Plepler with us, he was always had our back.
And Don Hewitt, who invented it.
Yeah, Don Hewitt, amazing.
Who said, our job is to make interesting what's important.
Exactly. There you go. Bang. That should be today. Bango.
Well, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why that quote is in my mind is because I live by it, or try to, and I've always remembered it.
Yeah.
Our job, if you watch, I used to watch the nightly news, and then I watched it almost just to make fun of it, and now I can't even watch it.
Can't watch it.
Because it should be renamed, some video we found that was cool that we thought we'd show you. I mean, you get about 3 minutes of real news before you're into like, a plane had a problem. Unless they all died, shut the fuck up. I don't give a shit. It's not a story, and they show a shaky plane or something and passengers freaking out. When all the shit that they could be covering goes uncovered, which is the kind of shit you covered, and then by the time you get to the last segment, it's just the one-legged skier.
Well, I think it's worse than that. I think it's fucking op-ed. It's so, like, you get, like, whatever, 15, minutes maybe of some sort of video, like you're saying, which is not the video they should be showing. And then let's all talk about the video and what we think about the video. Everybody's just talking about it, op-ed, and you're like, I don't give a shit what you have to say.
I mean, and that's where the better news is given. That's not even TikTok.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the mind of someone who gets their news from TikTok?
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a problem.
I mean, look, we have so many problems like that,
Yeah.
problems of character,
Yeah.
problems of discipline, problems of minds that are just mush, including one of the candidates for president that we're going to be voting for is just, I mean, not that he always hasn't been an insane person, maybe not always, because like that movie that just came out about him, The Apprentice, is awesome. If you haven't seen
I
it,
haven't seen it.
it is so good. The reason why it may not do well, and I hope it does well, in the way Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11 did really well before the 2004 election,
Yeah.
is that it's people, if they hate Trump, it's like, okay, I'm not going to see it because I wouldn't want to patronize him. It's an honest character study. Just look at it as that. He did change. He was his father's son. The father was awful and partly made the son who he is. So I know people who saw it and said, I don't like it because it's sympathetic to Trump in the beginning. Well, maybe he is sympathetic in the beginning. He was collecting like rents from his father. He opens the door and they throw hot water on him because that's what happens when you were a slumlord, which his father was sometimes, and people didn't want to pay the rent. And then, it's just, if you just watch it as a study of a human, it's quite interesting. And then, of course, it's very brutal to Trump in the second half. But he did change.
Right.
He did become this monster.
But don't you think, I'm asking the one guy who knows and is probably going to tear me to shit for saying this, don't you think that all politicians are sort of narcissistic, charming megalomaniacs?
Not all, no. I mean, there's a tribute in my book to a guy named Henry Waxman, who you probably never heard of, and that's why.
That's why.
He's so great.
Okay.
It's a tribute. We did it as an editorial. We gave him the Baldy Award. He's a bald, bespeckled congressman who single-handedly wrote,
I mean the big boys.
Wrote probably all the progressive legislation since, like 1980. He's not in Congress anymore, but he was until recently. There's a Republican who said, if you don't like progressive legislation, it's something like, it's because you were looking away while Henry Waxman was, I mean, everything from, seat belts, that kind of stuff. Anything that aids, recognizing aid. He just did it all.
He was a political mechanic.
He was just a guy who wanted to do the job.
Right.
That guy, you don't find that often in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
You don't often find it in the Democrats, but much more often. Democrats are wonks. Hillary's a wonk. Obama's a wonk. They really care about the work, and they know in detail that what you need to know about the work. Republicans have this idea, oh no, big picture. Bush, we got attacked, war. Where, sir? I don't know. I'm not a detail man. You figure that out.
Republicans have wonks too, but
No, they're not.
Come on.
Name one Republican wonk.
All of the neocons.
Neocons?
Yeah.
Oh, like
Wolfowitz,
Snowcraft,
Rumsfeld, Haney.
Yeah, those
they were policy wonks.
They're not in the office. I'm talking about Republican versus Democratic politicians.
Right.
You can't name any Republican wonks who really care about I mean, that's not true. I'm sure they do. Some of them do their work, and I'm glad they do their homework because, again, I don't trust the left either. But generally, the people who just want to make policy and make lives better and make government work better, yes, they spend too much money and they have a lot of flaws, but they generally tend to be people like Obama and Hillary Clinton. They're wonky people who like the idea of government. They know all the things. There's another, I think, a great one we did about celebrities who want to be in office. And
but Reagan had a cabinet of wonks. I mean, he put a cabinet of wonks.
It's a long time ago.
He was the Queen of England, and Schultz was the ultimate wonk. Exactly.
Yes, you're right, but that's a different era and a different Republican.
Agreed.
That Republican's gone.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, but
wonky.
Yeah, but that Republican doesn't exist much anymore.
Yes.
I mean,
they
exist on the outskirts. I mean, they exist writing articles for What's the Republican magazine that?
Well, don't put me on the spot.
No, you don't know that. What?
No.
I'm stoned, so I can't think of it.
Oh,
but
shit.
you know, they have one. It gets like
Republican magazine?
yeah. There's a hardcore right wing. It's very influential. I mean,
Drudge Report? No.
no, I don't know.
I don't
We'll
know.
Chiron it later.
Yeah.
But it's very influential. It was very influential in the Iraq War. You know, they were like all for the surge, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not completely crazy, but I think they were against Trump at the beginning.
Right. Well, the Republicans were against Trump in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then he took over the GOP.
Mm.
You know, that's what happens with the. You know who I liked? You know who was wonkish and a political mechanic and who got fucked by his own party? John Boehner. He was trying to make shit work. He got fucked for even meeting with Obama.
I wouldn't call him a mechanic.
He was a political mechanic. He worked on consensus. He
was-
tried to make shit happen.
He was a drunk.
Yeah.
He was
but a charming drunk.
maybe. Okay, some drunks are. I don't know. I never met him. I know he used to burst into tears if he saw an American
He
flag
was emotional.
in a
Emotional cat.
in a sandwich.
Emotional cat.
Yeah.
But listen, he got kicked out by his own party for just meeting with
Look,
Obama.
I'll take him and his I weep about how much I love America, much more than I will the kids who think America's the worst place in the world.
I agree.
And I mean, really, I mean, the idea that I've heard the term "death to America" now chanted on American soil. I mean, I've heard it as you have, and you've been to these places. Chanted in Tehran.
A lot of those people have never left America is the issue.
Well, that's the point. They need to talk to you.
Yeah, well, listen, I come back here. I'll tell you the truth. Every time I come back here, I'm like, it's paradise. I love it. I love it.
Right. But you're exactly the person who needs to talk to the kids who think they live at the worst time in the worst country.
You're wrong.
Just you're wrong. From someone who's been there. You know, look, every generation looks back at the former generations and go, oh, these kids today, I mean, they did it to us.
Sure.
But the difference is that I don't remember my views on things that I had no idea about because I was too young, taken as seriously as these kids are.
Yeah. Well, because Gen Z, so the baby boomers were the largest media economic cohort, socioeconomic cohort ever, and we're so till today when they're dying off. So now it's going to be Gen Z. So Gen Z are going to run shit, and just like the baby boomers did. The problem now is you have kids coming out of college and being like, I read a book, and so therefore this is what and you're like, look, go to these places. Go see what it's like to never have a kick at the can, ever. And if you have the wrong name or the wrong accent, you and your kids kids will never have a kick at the can, ever. And so, look, I'm an immigrant. I came here with nothing. And you're like, it's still the American dream. It's still a place where you can go from rags to riches, where you can manifest destiny, where you can make it all happen. And you can say what you want about a lot of other places, but you can't do that, I would say, in 94% of the globe.
What's so ironic is that the thing they really hate, because they're so uneducated, they only really know black and white. Right. And I mean literally black and white.
Right.
Everything is seen through this lens of identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
So white people bad. Everything they did was bad. So ironic, because everything that makes their lives possible was, I'm sorry, probably invented through Athens, Rome, Jerusalem, Philadelphia, London. Wow. You know, I mean, rule of law, free and fair elections, respect for minorities. These are all the things that make life good. The fact that we have protected markets, that you can actually do business without it being dominated by corruption. I mean, these are the things that make life good for everybody. Human rights, the idea of you get a trial by jury. They take all these things for granted. People made these ideas up and fought and died for them. I'm sorry some of them are white. I wish it all happened in Wakanda.
Look, it's hard to argue with. I will say that there was a time when England especially went out, took all the resources from everywhere, brought them back to England, manufactured them, and then sold them back to the rest of the world. And being an ex-colonial, you're like, yeah, I grew up loving British comedy and British fucking TV and British books and British, but they were doing some bad fucking things
The British to Canada?
to everybody, to the
everybody.
empire, the empire.
But not as bad to you as they did to
No,
people.
not as bad as Africa.
What did they do bad to you? They did bad to the natives.
Well,
They did bad to the natives.
if you want to look at World War I and World War II, Canadians were known as cannon fodder. In fact, D-Day, they just sent the Canadians on the first waves to get killed.
Problem? No.
So we were
Really? Canadians were cannon fodder?
famously, they'd send in the Canadians and the
I
Australians.
bet you they took it very,
the
very,
Kiwis.
very politely.
Thank you. No, we were cannon fodder for the Brits, as were all the colonies. I shouldn't just say us. I mean, it was
Right.
The colonies
Well,
went in first.
there's a great scene in Braveheart where Braveheart, of course, takes place in Scotland in 1315 when the Scots were looking to be free from the Brits. And William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson,
Australian.
brilliantly in a brilliant movie, whatever you think of his politics. The bad guy is King. Who was the king in England at the time? King John.
William Wallace, was it? No, he's William Wallace. It was.
No, he's William Wallace. No, I think it was King John or King
one of the
Edward.
kings,
I think Edward.
Edward.
Played by the Patrick McGowan,
He's so good. Yeah.
who was
He threw the dude out the window. Amazing scene.
Yes, and it's one of those scenes that you see in all the movies where there's medieval battles, and one side is arrayed on a battlefield against the other, and they're about to do it. They're about to throw down with all of them and run at each other. I mean, the fact that men do this just says a lot about how bad men are. Okay, but they're going to do it, and the guy says to King Edward, Patrick McGowan, should we send in, or should we do the archers now, sir? And he said, no, send in the Irish.
Yeah.
The Irish, sir? He says, yeah, arrows cost $1 a piece.
Arrows cost money. Yeah. And then the Irish run out, and the other Irish guy convinced them to come over. And he goes, you can never trust the Irish. And then they go in.
If you know me at all, you know that I care about my health, mainly my heart health, and getting heart-healthy energy is super important. Fall can be a stressful season, and stress leads to feeling drained. Super Beets Heart Chews offer a convenient, delicious, plant-based way to support healthy blood pressure and circulation. And because it's natural, there are no stimulants and no jittery feeling. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the unique antioxidant compound in Super Beets is clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. I also feel great about doing something healthy for myself, and you should too. So much better than waking up going, why did I eat that deep-fried pizza finger-dipped in ranch dressing? Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews on all bundles and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using code RANDOM. I happen to know beets are actually very good for you. That's getsuperbeets.com, code RANDOM. I'm always making this point about the past. It's like we grow up historically as a species in a way that's completely analogous to the way we grow up as individuals. You don't expect you of 10 years old to have any sense of right or wrong or morality or what's wrong. And when we were, in 1315 or whatever, or, 2000 BC, whatever, humans were nobody even thought that slavery was wrong in biblical times. We know because we have the Bible.
Sure.
And there's no one ever says, let's just not do it.
Every country, well, now country, but every
everywhere.
every country all had slaves.
Black, white,
Yeah,
and
that's
in
the thing.
between.
I was reading some stat that there's more slaves today than there's ever been, like numerologically.
That's bullshit.
Well, because there's a lot of slaves out there.
There's not a lot of slaves. I looked into this also.
Okay,
There's not a lot of slaves.
No.
There's people, where the people who are resemble it most closely are
Southeast
rich, Gulf states
Uh-huh.
like Bahrain,
Sure.
the United Arab
Bangladeshi
Emirates,
workers and-
Qatar, that have these workers, right? Usually from Asia,
Yeah.
Bangladesh, the
India,
Philippines.
yeah.
They treat them about as bad
Yeah.
as you can treat a worker.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's so close to
very
slavery,
true. Yeah.
indentured servitude.
Yeah.
But of course, because they're people of color, we cannot.
Well, we do
the
say, I mean,
criticism is not as
we actually did that. We snuck into where the camps where they live as they're making the high rises and all of this
Right.
business. We actually did that, and you're right. I mean, it's as close as you get. I mean, what I'm talking about. Apparently, I shouldn't speak on it because I don't know the stats, so I don't really know. But
yeah, but you did story on it.
Well, we did story. No, I'm saying on wage servitude, where they take your passport and they don't give you the money, and you stay there for 22 years and you never pay off your debt. I mean, but I'm talking about
It's very close.
Very close,
I'm just saying, if they did that in Belgium,
yeah,
I think it would be a bigger story.
yeah, well, sure, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that is one of the real big problems of the left.
yeah.
Like, only white people can do bad things.
Look,
That's just white
and
people have done
today,
terrible
today
things.
more than ever.
Right.
That's the one. I don't know where is that a university thing? Because it seems like university is percolating into mainstream.
You know,
maybe?
this Chapel Roan open letter I did last week,
Right.
talking about Israel,
Mhm.
thinking I could reason with someone who has shown an ability to reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting. It did amazing business. When I
Right.
say business, I mean retweets and
Yeah.
over 10 million, which is a lot for
Sure,
us.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, and very little blowback. Like,
Really?
there's no way to argue. It's
Yeah.
so hard to argue with the pictures of the women in burqas.
Sure, yeah.
It's like once you show that picture,
Yeah,
which is apropos
yeah.
to this conflict, if you
Yeah.
think it isn't, again, you don't know much about history or the
Yeah.
present. It's just so hard. So this is kind of infuriating to me. You may have had it happen to you too. It's
Yeah.
like when they can't argue with me, they just ignore it.
Right.
It's like, I can't win this argument, so I'm just not going to engage. And in 3 days, we'll all be talking about something else.
Yeah. I look, I'm going to say two things. Probably it's going to light up the Twitter sphere. But the one thing was, and I remember saying this a lot during our reporting, after 9/11, you were like, look, 9/11, like you were saying, there was a period of non-terrorism. 9/11 changed the world, right? It galvanized the world into two camps. It did exactly what Osama bin Laden wanted. It was a very successful piece of terrorism. If you look at it just
Right.
organic. Now, if you look at what was happening in the Middle East, which I was there reporting on, the Abraham Accords were ratified, where the GCC were going to recognize Israel, the biggest thing since
I
1947.
got to stop here. The Abraham Accords were something that happened in the Trump administration
Correct, under Jared.
under Jared Kushner to get, and they successfully got Bahrain,
Oman,
Saudi,
the G7.
Morocco.
Yeah.
To have a treaty with Israel, and Israel
And recognizes you.
Israel already has and recognizes, and Israel already has that with Jordan,
Yeah.
and with Egypt. So
groundbreaking, huge.
I mean, mostly what you hear about Israel, and it's certainly true, is that it's surrounded by enemies because they are surrounded by Hezbollah in the north and Gaza. But here are if you could neutralize the Gaza situation somehow. Now you've got Egypt, long-standing treaty there, Jordan to their other side, treaty, and now these other countries, and they were about to get Saudi Arabia.
So, if you look, this is my long-winded thing from 9/11, is the Abraham Accords, again under Trump and Jared, biggest thing since 47, at least bigger than since Camp David and Jimmy Carter.
Right.
Massive, 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 massive thing. The problem with that is the enemy of my enemy becomes my friend. So Iran sees this and says, hold on a second.
Right.
We have Israel and the GCC, our two biggest enemies.
GCC, even I don't know what that is.
Oh, Jesus, now you're going to call me out and I've had a few drinks. The Gulf Cooperation Council or Committee, it's basically the 7 or 8 Gulf states, right? The ones you just mentioned.
The ones that are keeping the Pakistanis in indentured servitude.
So they were going to recognize Israel and do all this stuff, do this stuff. So Iran sees this and goes, fuck, if that happens, we're screwed because we've got the GCC and Israel together. So they pay for the 3 H's. They pay for the Houthis. They pay for
course.
Hamas. They pay for Hezbollah. And all of a sudden, Hamas comes out, like out of nowhere, comes and starts doing these heinous, fucking terrible 9/11 style attacks. And by the way, it fucking worked. The Middle East now has gone 20 years backwards. The GCC, the Abraham Accords have gone out to, everybody's just, you know what, fucking Israel's now on its fucking island again. And Iran just said, go do it, because they've been paying their salaries for the past 20 years. And you're like, they fucking won. Because they
didn't win because the war isn't over.
No, but hold on, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they destabilized the region again.
Yeah.
Again. And at some point, we have to say, look, terrorism can't fucking win every fucking game.
Right.
They're not allowed to win every game.
Now, I really wish you had some sort of seminar that the kids would listen to, but they probably wouldn't because you're over 50. Are you over 50?
Oh, man. Yes, look at me. I'm over 50.
Okay, man, you look great.
I'm over 50.
I mean, I don't know how old you are.
Yeah.
You're generically middle-aged, which is as good as good as you can be.
Love you.
I mean, I'm older than you. I know that.
You look fucking good.
Well, thanks.
We're just a fucking mutually beneficial society.
Yeah. Hey, what kind
you
of
look good, dude.
What kind of show
You
think
got a
this
full
is?
head of hair. Look at you.
I do. Yeah.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but you're dating supermodels. You got a full head of hair. Let's fucking go, man.
Well, I'm not dating supermodels, but I have, and it's not good.
Let's go.
Well, come on.
The kids say LFG. That's what we're doing.
Let's fucking go.
There we go, brother.
But I mean, we do need someone to crack through.
Well, someone needs to say sane shit, which you do.
I know,
We need to say sane shit.
But then we need to get. I mean, the point about Chapel Roan was like, but can I get her to watch it? Can I get her, or not her, yes, her would be great, but also those people to pay attention to what I'm saying. My point about like nobody really on the internet was able to refute it because it's irrefutable. What I'm saying, you can't refute. Israel was in that land forever. It is their ancestral homeland. There have always been Jews there. It does not the same thing as colonizing. Whatever thing where I'm going against the bullshit that they've learned on TikTok, that they're colonizers, that it's an apartheid state, all this, that they're committing genocide. There have been genocides committed in the world. This is not one of them, and they could if they wanted to. The reason why so many people have died is because Hamas uses their civilians as shields.
True.
They're responsible for this.
As does Hezbollah.
There is a simple solution to this. Stop attacking Israel. Accept them as a state in the region. It is their ancestral homeland. There was a deal by the UN. I said this to Chapel Roan. We like them, right? You know, I'm trying to get through to these kids in any way I can. But if they just turn off and go, why should I listen to somebody that age who knows so much more than I do? Boring.
Well, I'm going to say three things.
How do you get that?
Yeah, I'm going to say three things. You asked me the worst place in the world that I would live in.
Let's get to that.
I would say
Van Nuys.
I would say Van Nuys. I would say North Korea. The reason why I say North Korea, it's a fascinating place to go for a week because you see Stalinist Russia in 1953 or Maoist China in 1963.
By the way, that's the one. If all the ones you're going to say, I would most agree. Number one. Yeah, it scares me.
But if you lived there,
oh my God!
If you lived there,
OMG!
We would hear stories of if you go to a concentration camp,
I can't even.
They eat kernels of corn out of cow shit.
Beyond, I can't even.
And so I'll say one other anecdote. I was driving in the country, which you're never allowed to do. And they don't have like villages in the country. They have like a one Stalinist apartment, like 50-story high building in the middle of nowhere. But they've ripped out all of the windows and
how does the Grubhub driver get there?
So check this out. So you have just forest and then this Stalinist, 50-story high thing that they built in like 1953. And then but they've pulled all the windows out because they had to sell them to China. They don't have any money. They've pulled the rebar out, so it looks like a concrete-eating woodpecker has, so it's just got holes. But they're on the 50th floor, and you look up, and there's cooking fires. So you're like, hold on a second. These guys are carrying up, there's no water, so they're carrying water from the stream and wood to have cooking fires on floor 49. And you're like, okay, you want to know where I don't want to live? There, right? Now, that said, And
What-
this is, I'm going to invoke your ire.
What I'm
I spent
hearing, what I'm hearing, Shane,
Yeah.
is that you're a racist and you hate Asians.
Mm.
That's what I'm hearing.
The opposite, sorry. My producer's laughing because he knows the truth about that. But what I will say is I spent a lot of time in Israel, and I love it.
Like Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. I mean, there's one city block, which is like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam on the same block. And you're like, okay, same God, same fucking thing. Everybody shut up. And I love it. I love Israel. I've also spent a lot of time, like my secret was Lebanon. I used to love going to Beirut, and everyone goes, stay safe, dude. Cut to me on the fucking beach, eating branzino,
Right.
drinking wine, going to the fucking open air, the best club in the world.
Right.
Babes, everyone like, yeah, it's super dangerous. Don't ever come here.
But what year is this?
See, exactly. So before all of everybody left and before, but I've spent a lot of time in the region, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go back to North Korea. When we did the Rodman thing, what you realize is people are fucking people. And the kids love the basketball, and the young kids love the fucking Harlem Globetrotters, and the regime is fucked up. The regime is fucking terrible, and I'll say that fucking, my hotel should have been Hotel Murder, because it just reeked of fucking murder and fucking blood. And you're like, I don't want to ever come back here. Sorry if I'm applying for a visa.
This was an Omni?
This was an Omni. By the way, their version of an Omni. So North Korea never wanted, because it's the antithesis of freedom. That said, the people of North Korea were just fucking there for a fucking basketball game, and they were bringing tears to their eyes because they like fucking basketball, and the Americans were there. You go to fucking Israel, they're fucking nice people, they're beautiful people. You go to Palestine, they're beautiful, nice people. You go to the region, you go to Saudi, you go to
Right.
everyone. There's so much propaganda. The Saudis are so fuck. It's not true. The fucking, these guys are so fuck. It's not true. The people are fine.
I had the same experience making Religulous.
Yeah.
We shot the last scene in a, area where we wanted to have dinner was Palestinian run, but the bodyguards were super nervous. They spent an hour checking out the restaurant before they let us in.
Sure, yeah.
And then when we got in, it's like they were happy to have our money.
Beautiful.
And we were happy to have their food. We
Yeah.
were starving.
Yeah.
And you realize just what you said.
Yeah.
It's all about the politicians. And it'd be so easy to solve all of these problems. Israel and the Palestinians could totally get along.
Oh, like same people, same food, same names, same language. And you sit there and you go, if we could just fucking be people. And that's why when people start talking about shit as if they understand it, they've never been there. They're talking about regime.
No.
They're talking about policies. They're not talking about the people. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's what pisses me off.
Right. And you're right. Same everything. Semitic people. I have an organization called One Nose because they have the same nose. And I would like to solicit donations today to One Nose. It's
my
dedicated.
Lord.
It's dedicated.
What was your old fucking show called? Politically Incorrect? Holy shit, man. You've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
One
And I
knows.
haven't changed. They
Well,
have.
no, you're a beautiful baby boy. Your mom and I love you very much.
Well, yeah. No, I hope that the kids can get some wisdom somehow shoehorned.
Everybody needs to fucking.
Shoehorned in there because again, their go-to is you're old or get off my lawn. That's not an argument. That's what you say because you don't have an argument because you're too lazy to do the research and understand what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand it, then really you don't get a vote anyway.
Yeah.
But at least, I'm not trying to mock you. I'm just trying to educate you.
Sure.
And maybe you wouldn't wind up on this side. That's what I kept saying to Chapel Roan. Like, is this really the people you want to throw down with? The people that make their women wear burqas? You're a fucking drag queen singer. What you do would get you thrown off a roof in Gaza. You're on the wrong team here. You're on team, we think women are second-class citizens, and we're not afraid to say so. I mean, Gaza, the place where your heroes, Hamas, live, has no laws against, or effectively executed laws against sexual harassment or marital rape or, underage marriage, any of the things that are like, just de rigueur, we think of the worst things in the world here in America.
Like I'd say, you have a lot of people who have never been. Like one of the things that we found is if you just go somewhere, and quite frankly, we look back at this glorious time of news, like the Walter Cronkite era, and it was literally a stringer who never left the hotel drinking whiskey would get something and he would send it back. They would write it on a teleprompter. He'd read it, and everybody believed it because it wasn't disproved.
Right.
And so one of the things we did, speaking of heavy metal in Baghdad, we started just going places. And for my first trip to Afghanistan, we won an Emmy for that. And because we found all these stories of misuse of funds and billions of dollars going missing, forts being taken over the Taliban. They're like, Shane, where did you get your fucking stories from? And I'm like, Sigur. Sigur is the Special Investigator General of Afghanistan. It's the American government. We just went and said, where's the fucking shit happening? But we went there. And what you find is nearly 90% of the time, completely the opposite of what everybody takes as a given. Because it's just fucking, this is the story and this is what we're saying.
In what way?
I mean, everything.
Like
so,
what?
Well,
Like what's opposite?
well, so I remember, well, for example, we went to Fallujah, and
That's Iraq.
correct.
Oh, I thought you said
Oh
Afghanistan.
no, in Afghanistan. Oh, okay. So Afghanistan, for example, all the stories would be coming back. Oh, well, just everything. We're winning the war. There's no fucking heroin. We've convinced everybody this, whatever. And you're like, okay, I went there, and like heroin is like this. 90% of the world's heroin is coming from here. And everyone you would talk to are like, oh, the Americans leave, and the Taliban have more land than before they came in. Everyone.
It was it's as much of a redo of Vietnam.
Yeah, worse.
As Lady Gaga was of Madonna when she first came out. It was like the same thing,
Yeah.
and somehow we forgot.
More expensive, longer.
Well, but the same shtick.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you're there, everyone's like, well, we're close to winning and we've taken this territory. And if you're there, you're like, yeah, no, the Taliban have won. And the minute the Americans leave, they're going to run everything. They're going to have all of our money, all of our stuff. They're going to have all this, our heroin money and our legitimate money. They're going to take all our bullion, all our tanks, all our planes.
And they're going to make it even worse on the women.
Or
which
on
they did.
everybody.
I mean, they went so far to, I think some of this is just trolling us. I mean, like this again, was I was saying to Chappell, like your heroes in Hamas are only slightly less conservative than the Taliban,
Right.
who this last few weeks
Yeah.
went to places where, again, I think this is just trolling, because already you're keeping women like head to toe covered.
Right.
But now they can't be heard in public.
Right.
Like
I didn't know that.
No singing.
Right.
No, their voice can, I mean, that's trolling, right? I mean, you've made your point, and now you're just saying, you know what, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you, kids.
Look, I'm going to
What do we have to do to get you protesting us?
Hamas, if you spend any time in the region, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis. We were actually, I believe, shout out to Ben Anderson, one of the first to ever report on the Houthis.
The Houthis, of course, are the ones in Yemen. Yemen, which is, the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula.
Yes.
Borders south there. And like, they have nothing to do with Palestine.
Correct.
And yet they're lobbing missiles at Israel.
Correct.
Nothing to
Also,
do.
the Houthi is a name, and there was one tribe, small little tribe from the north, Sadr, and
You were there in Yemen?
Many times, yeah.
Oh.
I got arrested, and shout out to Haitham.
Now-
Haitham got me out of secret police prison.
When you fly into Yemen, it's a direct from Burbank?
Yeah, Van Nuys. I go from Van Nuys to fucking Yemen. Very difficult to get into Yemen.
How do you get into Yemen?
Surprise, surprise.
Don't say practice.
Yeah, practice. No, I took a freighter.
A freighter?
Yeah.
Oh, my
I took
God.
a freighter.
I feel so guilty, Shane. I have that same Emmy, and I've never been east of La Brea. I feel so guilty. But you know what?
You know what, dude? You don't have
I'll stay here with the women.
You don't have a stomach-eating, flesh-eating
I'll protect
parasite.
the women.
Yeah.
You go get the virus and the stomach-eating
not
thing.
to be an asshole, but you are doing an essential thing of bringing what's important to people.
So true.
And hold on, can I say one thing?
Please.
The left does this thing about doing politics through humor. They're not funny and their politics are shit. You're funny and your politics are spot on. So well done, and that's important. And somebody has to do that.
I so appreciate that. especially since I can do that and still have dinner at Madero.
There you go. And since I can't do that, I have to go to Liberia and go, this shit's fucked up. Bill Maher.
Well, that's you know what? God, that I don't believe in, really did me a solid when he made me funny, because that makes up for so many things, and it allows you to just, yeah.
But you have
sit.
to shed light on the stuff that's important, and you have
Right.
to do it in an entertaining way. What I
But
found
how
out,
do you get into Yemen? You said a freighter. From
I had
where?
to go on a freighter,
What is a freighter?
like it's like a
Oh.
ship, like a tramp steamer.
A tramp steamer,
Yeah.
like your Humphrey Bogart in
Yeah.
1954.
Exactly.
I love it. So
And by
where-
the way,
but
I
where-
love it.
But where did that?
I love it.
Really?
I love it.
Okay.
Well, hold on.
Well-
I used to love it. I remember, I'll tell you this one time I'm allowed to tell a story where I was very fucking pleased with myself.
Please.
Jake, my DP, used to always say, Shane fucking definitely likes to fucking dress up. One of the things was, which is self-deprecating, but if you walk around in khakis and have dudes doing this, you learn the hard way, you're a fucking target.
What's this?
Talking into your wrist, like security.
I see. Oh, I get it.
So what I found early is if you fucking put a chicken bone in your beard and wear rags, nobody fucking messes
A
with you.
chicken bone in your beard?
Like just look like a bum. Just look
Right.
like.
Oh, I see.
So just don't have fucking dudes in khakis talking in their wrist, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
There you go. Okay, you're a smart man.
Right.
So anyway, I was reporting in Kashmir, and there's a very specific Kashmiri chapel, which is like the hat with the thing and the long shavar kameez. And so I just come from Kashmir, and we were going to Northwest Frontier Province to hang out with the Taliban in SWAT, which is like fucking dangerous, right? And so I was with my partner Sarush Alvi, who's from Pakistan. We were going into Northwest Frontier Province, and I'm basically a pink Irishman wearing fucking Kashmiri chapel. And so we were going there, and my producer says, fuck this. Like, let's get the fuck out. Like, this is fucking just too fucking crazy. And I remember myself and Sarush, we went into this guest house because there's no hotels or anything. So we're in this guest house, and the lady goes to Sarush, who's Pakistani, goes, does your religious leader require any special diet, right? Because there's no fucking way that a pink man in wearing Kashmiri chapel is anything but a Dagestani fucking badass. So he's fucking there for only fucking one reason. So we're not going to fuck with him. And so Sarush responds in Urdu, no, we just want to be left alone. Thank you very fucking much. And I was like, I'm fitting fucking in fucking Swat Valley in fucking Peshawar. So that I've got to say was the fun. But I remember driving in with Sarush in this fucking minivan into SWAT, and I remember just going, this is fucking fun. Like, this is super fucking fun. We're in here. There's all kinds of crazy shit going on. We're fucking reporting on it.
Yeah.
We're in the fucking middle of global politics,
You know
and we're
what?
reporting what nobody else is.
I always say, don't pity the martyr. He likes his job.
Exactly.
And I can compete, I think, with that story about you going into
Go, baby.
Kashmir.
Go, baby.
I have a sweater that you will not believe.
It's so scratchy.
Comfortable.
It scratches my nipples.
It is so comfortable. It's like you're wearing nothing and you're still warm. Okay, how does that happen? How do they do that? I don't know. But thank you for allowing that to get to America. So Dagestan.
Yeah.
Let's educate to the public. Where exactly is Dagestan?
So Dagestan is like the southern, like, little tip of, it's one of the stands of Russia. What's amazing about
Near
Dagestan,
Chechnya.
well, there's Chechnya here, right, and there's Dagestan here. On either side of the Caspian Sea, I believe, the Caviar Sea, whatever that
in
one is.
between, which is the Caucasus.
Yes.
The Caucasus Mountains are between the Black Sea and the Caspian
Yes.
Sea.
So
We've
the only
lost
reason-
everybody now.
The only reason why I know it's the sea is because we got caviar from the Dagestani mafia, and which was illegal.
But it just amused me that you
But
thought
hold on.
the whole world would be laughing when you said, he's from like the Dagestani. And they're
Right.
like, oh,
But
the
the one-
Dagestani.
the one thing-
Stop it.
The one thing I wanted to say about Dagestan, which is interesting, is basically the Spetsnaz, which is the Russian Navy SEALs, like their secret fucking army, Green Berets. They essentially run Dagestan because it's such like there's so much terrorism going on. basically you have half the population, what they call going into the forest, which is learning to be like a terrorist super, but because like Wayne Gretzky used to play with a concrete puck. So when he would go in, and play with a real puck. So these guys are
Baseball
like,
players.
these guys grow up under the Spetsnaz, under this Russian Secret Service. So they're such good fucking terrorists that they go and they become the generals or the colonels or the majors of the terrorist groups, the terrorist cells in all these countries. So when they see a pink man wearing Kashmiri chapel, they're like, fucking Dagestanis are here,
I see.
right? So when you go on with your race business,
Right.
the white dudes are
Well-
if you're white and have a Henna
But-
beard and are wearing some Kashmiri chapel, they're terrified of you in Pakistan.
But it gets back to my point that I made on your show that the Russians are white. Okay, even the Dagestanis
Dagestani.
are white.
People are fucking scared of the Dagestanis. They're the best UFC fighters. They're the best wrestlers in the world. And they're, quite frankly, I don't want to be weird, but they're the best terrorists in the world. They are tough
Right.
motherfuckers. Stealing the fucking caviar notwithstanding, that's another place I don't particularly want to live.
Where?
Dagestan.
Dagestan. But
No.
okay, so if North Korea is the number one place you would.
Liberia, number 2.
Liberia? The
Yeah.
American colony, Liberia? It's
Yeah.
okay.
I'm impressed. It's an American colony.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Liberia,
built it.
for folks
Slaves built it.
who haven't been, it's on the west coast of Africa.
Mhm.
It's near Ghana.
Yeah.
It's Nigeria, that
Sierra
area.
Leone, yeah.
Sierra Leone, or that area, western.
West, yeah.
From whence these slave ships came
Correct, and went back.
and went back.
Yeah.
But Liberia was an American colony in
Yes.
Africa.
Liberia, Monrovia is named after Monroe.
Yes.
Constitution written here.
It was taken over by a sergeant named James Taylor. Not
Well,
James Taylor.
James, now you fucked me because I had
It's an American
Yes.
name, but he made himself a dictator there.
Yes.
For
Come
some
on,
It
for
used to be.
fuck's
It used to
sakes,
be a very, I thought, desirable place to live.
Oh, fuck no.
Never, at no time in its history.
No. So basically, the slaves went back, the American slaves, promptly enslaved the Africans as a under the plantation system. That
The American slaves
went back.
enslaved other Africans,
The
as
Africans,
slaves.
as the local Africans. So America bought Liberia,
Yes.
gave it to our freed slaves. They enslaved the local Liberians.
That can't be right, Shane.
Well, it's
Says
not.
every Gen Zer.
So there was
That can't be right.
There were many civil wars, and it would be if you had an African last
Charles
name.
Taylor.
Charles Taylor.
Charles Taylor
Charles
is
Taylor.
is the
Very
name-
bad man.
bad man.
Very bad man.
Bad man.
Very bad. General Butt Naked became famous fighting
Yeah.
against Charles Taylor.
Yes, General Butt Naked.
hmm
Who's
But-
he? Did you ever interview him?
I did.
General Butt Naked?
Yeah.
Now, where was he a warlord?
Liberia.
Liberia. Okay.
So he fought naked. His real name is Joshua Blah. He's now a preacher. He
Now a preacher.
he killed
You love it.
thousands and ate them. Here's the thing: he was famous for
Yes.
going into battle naked, but also eating the hearts of pure people before he would go into battle.
Idi Amin also ate the voters,
Yes,
which usually is not a good thing
not
for
great
a
for the electoral
politician.
college. But no, seriously, General Butt Naked. I interviewed him. I actually had Stockholm syndrome because I was hanging out with General Butt Naked, and there was all these other generals. And Liberia is a terrifying place because you'd be somewhere, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by people, and your security is like, I don't know what to fucking do. We're fucked. And so it was terrifying. We got one guy out of jail, General Bin Laden. We got General Bin Laden out of jail because they all take names, not the General Bin Laden, but they take names of scary generals.
Right.
He got him out of jail. Because we got him out of jail, we bribed the jail to get him out. And then all of his people surrounded the building and were like, oh, we're fucked. And because Butt Naked was so feared, he would get us out of problems. Like, there were a lot of problems. And so to go back to Liberia might be fine. I don't know. Monrovia is terrible. The worst slum I've ever seen is a place called West Point, which is the biggest slum in West Africa. And it is in Liberia, and it is terrifying because I remember I bought like some kids, like you buy like a can of Coke or something, and they put like a tiny little bit into plastic bags, and like you give it to the kids, like here, and then like the bigger kids come, and then all of a sudden there's a fucking like war over fucking this little thing of coke, and I felt terrible. But like anything, like shoes, like shoelaces, like it is fucking survival. Like it is fucking whatever the fuck you have,
Right.
I'm gonna fucking take it.
Right.
And like it's like you're like, that's terrifying. There is no law. There is no. And by the way, if you have, doesn't matter. I have no money. Everything I have, I look like a fucking bum. Those fucking shoes are fucking worth something to me.
Right.
So I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to take
It's
your
like-
fucking shoes.
Sounds like prison when you're not in prison.
It's worse than fucking prison, dude. I can't even describe. It's like, it's beyond terrifying.
So you went there.
Mhm.
Did you stay overnight there?
Well, I went and did an interview there, and so I have this thing where whenever I'm about to die, I'm like trying to explain to my dad why. And we try to get out of West Point, and people surround the car, and it's bad. And the film's rolling, and I'm like, Dad, sorry, we came here to shoot a news story, and it got out of control, and I'm a stupid fucking idiot, and I'm sorry, because I was like, this is fucking it. Like this is like it.
Why? Because they were surrounding the car?
Yeah, we went into the fucking worst place on fucking earth, and just what the fuck were we thinking?
It sounds like Black Hawk Down.
It was like Black Hawk Down. Exactly.
So how'd you get out?
Our driver just fucking, went ape shit and got us the fuck out.
Oh, you just plowed through.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we talked our way out. Or
Fuck no.
We had
no,
candy
no,
bars.
it was bad. It was very bad. The one
So
time,
they were chasing you?
Yeah.
Oh my
The one
God.
time I talked my way out of that I'm proud of was we snuck into Mosul for that. Did I talk about Mosul?
Mosul, northern Iraq, where they captured one of Saddam Hussein, or both sons.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah, sorry. That's
They-
Mosul. No, this
Uday
is-
and
this is-
Hussein.
Yeah, this is Fallujah.
We're hiding
Sorry,
out
I got
in
it wrong. It's Fallujah. So Fallujah, that's one thing. You had asked another story, and I've forgotten because I'm drunk. But Fallujah, we were going into Fallujah because that's one story that we had. So, yeah, we broke the story on the American military were using depleted uranium shells. And they said they weren't. And they used them because they're really good at sort of vaporizing a house, and it turns it to dust. We heard this story that the Fallujah has more child deformities than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So we're like, okay, well, that's a story. So we went, and it was the precursor of ISIS was running Fallujah, this militia. And we went in the front door, and they said, no, you can't come in. And we said, okay. So we went the back way and interviewed like the doctors and the kids and the things. And there were so many, crazy atomic mutations in the children from these depleted uranium shells. Thank God we fucking interviewed the mayor of Fallujah, because when we went out, the fucking driver went out the first gate where we had been refused, and they said, we told you couldn't fucking come in. So they take us down in the forts in Afghanistan, in Iraq. They have these, they look like the triangular barriers on a highway, but they're like 20 feet high, and they're bomb blasting. And we drive down it, and at the end, there's always a fort. There's a fort with machine guns. And in this one, there's a field of rocks, and that's bad because that's a killing field. So we end up in this fucking killing field, and we're like,
riding over the rocks?
Sorry,
In
there's
the car.
there's like these blast walls. So you're driving, so it's man-made. So there's blast walls. And when you get there should be a fort or a fucking Nissan hut or something, communications. If it's a field, it's bad, right? Because
You have to drive over
no,
to get where you're going.
No, there's nothing there. There's a field. The field is a killing field. That's where they take you to kill you.
Oh, I see.
So we get there and we're like, oh, there's a killing, like we're fucking. And I remember my producer's a big tall guy, and he started saying, how this is no different. He was speaking in falsetto for some reason. This is no different than when Saddam Hussein was playing Saddam Hussein, and how to figure. I'm like, they don't speak fucking English. All they hear is fucking blah, 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 Saddam Hussein, blah, 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 Saddam Hussein. Like, shut up. So we're there, and it's fucking getting really fucking like, oh shit, I'm talking to my dad in my head again.
God.
And I remember going to the guy saying, we were trying to call the embassy, and we're trying to call the fucking dude. Everyone's trying to call everyone. I said, just call the fucking mayor. Just call the mayor. because we had interviewed the mayor as a fucking favor. I said, just call the mayor. They called the mayor and I said, I'm trying to get the fucking story out about the children. I'm trying to get the story. Tell him I'm trying to get the story out. And it went from us being in a killing field to them saying, let's go have a feast together and you can eat all this fucking, bull's balls.
I always say that about Middle Easterners. They're either killing you or feasting you. There's no in between.
There you go.
My friend. That's it. But once again, Shane, I think I can top you with this story because I have been to all of Puff Daddy's freak-off parties. Are you familiar with his freak-off parties?
You beat me on that one.
Wait.
Thankfully, I've never
I
been
have
to a
been to
freak-off.
all of them.
Wow.
Do you know what his code name is at his freak-off parties?
No.
General Butt Naked.
Ah, ba-dum-bum. You brought it all around. That's what Trump calls a weave. You just did a weave.
Exactly. Whenever somebody was like, get General Butt Naked, we need more oil.
You just did a weave.
It was like they meant, go get Puffy.
I think that's going to be the viral thing. General Puff Daddy, General Butt Naked. No, that's even another thing. The new scary general in Liberia is called General Puff Daddy, and his nickname here was Butt Naked.
By the way, Puff Daddy, one of the greatest names ever. He should never have chained Diddy and P. Diddy. Puff Daddy, perfect, done.
Not as good as General Butt Naked. Come on.
I'm not saying Puffy hasn't done worse things. I'm just saying he should have kept that name.
Keep the name.
Keep the name. Puff Daddy was the coolest name. And now that he's not using it,
what would be?
It would
you're
be
going to take
perfect
it over?
for me.
You fucking.
I am Puff Daddy. I mean, I literally am that. I'm those things wrapped into one man. But people would think of him and the parties and
There's all kinds of legacy.
yeah. Those parties are still going on, but they're just dancing now.
Okay.
So we've covered the two. That's 1 and 2. I love this line of questioning.
Yeah.
North Korea, Monrovia, Liberia, a surprise choice to me.
Dude.
3 would be what? Third worst?
Oh.
Someplace else where you were thinking you were going to die, perhaps?
Kandahar.
Kandahar.
Yeah.
Okay, Kandahar, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
A very solid choice.
Home of the Taliban.
Home of the Taliban and the brave.
the brave Taliban.
It's odd they have the same anthem we do.
Yeah.
Home of the Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I've heard they're bad people, but are they just really misunderstood? I mean, look, everybody has different views on women. I mean, look, Harrison Butker and I don't agree on everything, but, I don't think he's a terrible person. Am I wrong to think that it's the same way with the Taliban? Just
The Taliban have been killing people for a long fucking time, and they're going to keep killing people for a long fucking time. And it's, look, I will say they're the best freedom fighters in the world because they never fucking give up. Do you want to go there if you're a fucking liberal wit who likes to fucking make waggish jokes?
Where'd you stay in Kandahar?
So that's a great question. You can't stay in, you have to stay again. You have to stay in guest houses, and they will report
guest houses in
Kandahar, and they will report you to the Taliban because it's the Taliban's home.
So you say guest houses, you mean Airbnb?
Yeah, like
No?
Afghani guest houses. I don't know what.
Well, how do you arrange the guest house thing? Is it you don't want to go by a single email because that's what happened in that movie where Cameron Diaz switched houses.
You have to
Kate
have
Winslet.
local fixers fix you. By the way, if you don't wear like some sort of chuppel in Kandahar, you're fucking done. I mean, I was there. You want to hear a crazy story? I don't want to.
Always.
Okay, this is the crazy. You like this story?
I'm asking.
You're going to like this story.
I'm literally.
Okay. There's a guy named. The reason why I was in Kandahar. There's a guy named General Abdul Rizq, otherwise known as the Taliban killer. He's the Colonel Kurtz of Afghanistan. And what happened was, he was a young guy. His parents get killed by the Taliban, right? So he goes through the tunnels into Pakistan, into Wazir, Northwest Frontier Province. And he sweeps a floor. He's illiterate. Very, like, you want to talk about poor. Sweeping a floor in a fucking Waziristan fucking, not rich. So he sneaks back in as a teenager. And it's kind of like the Artful Dodger kind of shit. They're wearing like Adam and the Ants, like right. threads of weird shit. And they look crazy. They kind of look good, I've got to say. Their style is...
That sounds like it's dope.
Well, if we have an Adam and the Ants picture, it'd be great. No one understands that. But they look pretty good. But he started killing Taliban dudes because they killed his parents, right?
Sure.
So when the Americans invade, they say anyone who's fighting the Taliban, right, come, and we're going to give them training. So they train him and they give him money. So he goes back. The reason why I say Colonel Kurtz is he goes back to Kandahar, where he's from, and all Taliban activity goes to zero. He kills everybody. There's no Taliban like in Kandahar during his period.
Wow.
He also becomes the biggest drug dealer in the world. He has $2 billion of gold bullion. His brother killed Karzai's brother, the prime minister's brother. And so I go down there to interview him, and I'm wearing like fucking full-on past due thing. And I interview him, spend 2 days down there. And the first day I went to go interview him, I pulled up to his compound, and there were 2 masks on the ground. And then they said, you can't interview him today. And then we had to go back. And I said, oh. And they said, oh, those masks were human faces. They were bombs, and they blew off their own faces off their own bodies.
It happened.
It happened. So I go back, I interview him. So I fly to Kabul, right? And Kabul, this is how good Kandahar is. Kabul is like Paris in the springtime. It's like there's food,
Right.
and there's beds.
It's the capital.
And but it's the capital. Kabul usually is people are terrified. You know, people are holy fuck.
Well, I mean, it's the capital of one of the worst places in the world. But everything I've ever learned about it was that if you have to be in Afghanistan, at least be in Kabul, because there was the government there.
Yeah.
And there
well,
was
just one hotel, the Serena, it periodically gets bombed or shot or attacked, but it's a hotel.
But it's a hotel.
Yeah. So Kandahar doesn't have. So when you come from Kandahar to Kabul,
I mean, why the brunch has to end at 11? I don't know.
There you go. So anyway, I get there, and the American embassy reaches out to me. And they have DEA, Treasury, and somebody weird. Treasury? No, it was CIA. It wasn't weird. It was CIA, Treasury, DEA. And so they take me to the bottom of the basement of the American embassy, and they say, okay, we're going to trade with you on deep cover, all these stories. Give us Rizik. What's going on with Rizik? And I'm like, what do you mean what's going on with Rizik? And they're like, give us, you trade and we'll give you stories. And I'm like, I fucking asked him questions in English. He responded in Pashto until I translated. I don't know what the fuck. Give me Rizik. Rizik is your guy.
Also, if you dropped a dime on Rizik, wouldn't you
100%
be then killed?
And also, it's not great to like drop dime on your own fucking sources and your own interview people.
Especially when the people you're dropping the dime on are the Taliban.
Also, well, not the Taliban killer,
Right.
Colonel Kurtz. But my whole thing is he's your guy. Why the fuck are you asking me anything? You know. So to go back to it, you're fucked if you do. You're fucked if you're out. You don't. Don't visit Kandahar. Number 3, Bango. Long-winded, but I get there in the end, Bill.
Long-winded. That's what a podcast is long-wind.
I'm learning from
Now,
the best. I love your podcast, Bill.
I love it too. Thank
Funny
you.
as fucking
No,
shit.
I'm so glad you're on this network. You're perfect for this Club Random network. This is exactly what we should be doing. And don't worry about long wind. When I first started these, we did an hour, and everyone was like, "You're cheating us. An hour." I don't understand the American attention span. It's either 7 seconds or 2 hours. Nothing in
2
between.
hours if it's audio, 7 seconds if
It's just
audio.
unbelievable. It's like, I don't get it. But yes, no. All right, so what's the number 4? Number 4, worst place. We have North Korea, Monrovia, Liberia,
I don't even know
Kandahar,
if it's a country, but I think it is. South Sudan.
South Sudan is a country now, yes.
Yeah, it wasn't when I was there.
And that is, again, a very solid choice, one that I would have guessed would be in the top 4.
Yeah.
No, South Sudan.
Was not when I was there.
Sudan, for fans of George Clooney, is where Darfur is. I say that because...
North Sudan. I've been there, too. I snuck into Darfur.
Right. That's
not recommended.
Province of Sudan.
Yes.
And George Clooney did a lot to bring aid there. And I mean, he has my great admiration for
he's a good cat.
Using his celebrity.
Yeah.
I don't agree with his wife on Israel, but
I'm not familiar.
We don't have to go there. Well,
South Sudan was not South Sudan when I was there, and it was grim. I had cereal that tasted like rotten chicken.
Well,
I remember that.
It's famous for one thing: famine.
Yeah. Well, no. Yes. Yeah. Okay. You're right.
On
you got it.
on the tourist posters, it says "Come for the famine."
Yeah. Stay for the Ebola. No, but I remember going.
Oh, we kid the third world.
No. Well, Sudan's fine. Like Sudan, much like
So
Venezuela,
fucked.
could be rich. I mean, one of the things about Sudan, Darfur. So I snuck into Darfur. Speaking of Darfur, speaking of racism, all you hear about is Arab on black,
Right.
ethnic cleansing, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And the reason why I actually went to South Sudan was I went to Darfur, snuck into Darfur. Again, stupid. Do not do that, kids. And and we found out that
How do
they.
you sneak in?
That's a great question. You can watch my documentary on Vice. But anyway, I snuck in essentially
Through Chad?
No, I was in Sudan, and I went with the UN on a sort of a relief plane, and I hitchhiked, and I got in, and there's a guy named Mini Manawi who was the head of the sort of anti. He was the anti-Janjaweed. The Janjaweed are the dudes who have
Sure.
the bad guys
Yes.
and the thing. By the way, they look fucking great, but terrifying. And so Mini
They're
Manawi.
kind of the Taliban of Sudan.
There you go. And
The Janjaweed.
the Janjaweed. They were terrifying, like super terrifying. But so Mini Manawi was fighting them.
But not as bad as Israel.
Okay, dude.
No.
So
No.
they're pretty bad. I mean, I'm going to
Yeah,
say
pretty bad.
I don't know if
But-
anyone's worse than
Okay.
Janjaweed.
No, nobody's worse
But
than
we found out when we were there that they had found oil, and that the whole thing was just a pretense to get other people off the land so they could get the oil. And they said, well, there's no difference than the Liberty Wells, Chevron, down in South Sudan. And we're like, South, what the fuck? So we flew down to South Sudan, which was having a full-on civil war.
That's how they became a country.
There you go. And so with Bashir, the guy from Khartoum, so we went down there, and I was filming this fucking civil war about oil, which I was like breaking the story, so I was super stoked. But it was fucking grim. I've got to say, dude, it was not enjoyable. So that's number 4.
Well, I can understand it. I mean, South Sudan, and I wish them luck as a country, and I don't blame them because, the bureaucracy in Khartoum, I mean, where all the elitists are in Khartoum.
That's true.
But, the real people are in South Sudan. I mean, am I right? They're like the people, not like
Look, dude.
not like the fancy
The
goat milk eaters in fucking Khartoum.
Khartoum is so okay. So they have people like this all day long in Khartoum with machine guns pointed at the sky
Why?
because the Americans are coming.
Well, I mean, we did bomb the.
To go back to Black Hawk Down,
Well, also during Clinton's administration,
did we bomb?
yes,
Oh.
we bombed something that we said was building weapons, and it looks like it was
Oh, was it Port Sudan, I think.
It looked like it was a pharmaceutical factory.
Yeah, maybe it was Port Sudan. Yeah.
I think they were making aspirin, and we thought,
Yeah,
and then we thought
Port
they were.
Sudan, that was
we
Port
thought
Sudan.
They were making
Yeah.
nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't get everyone right.
Yeah. No. No. Khartoum's not good, and like
Right.
South Sudan was worse. I mean, it was. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's number 4.
There's a movie called Khartoum.
Is there?
Yeah. Why would I say it if there was? Which is about the battle that took place in 1850.
Well, I know that one. Was it Gordon?
Yes,
Yeah.
1859.
Yeah, Gordon. Yeah.
Laurence Olivier's in the
Oh,
movie.
love him.
And
Larry.
it's what happened was the British conquered Africa north to south,
Yeah.
and the French conquered Africa east to west.
Yeah.
And they met at Khartoum.
Yeah.
And of course, it was
I
wrong.
think Gordon got fucked in that one, didn't he?
I don't. You know what? I
did.
don't remember.
If
much.
I remember correctly, the British. That's the 4 feathers, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that kind of stuff.
They got screwed.
It's
in
Michael
Khartoum.
Caine, and that one.
Well, that's another good one.
About South Africa,
Oh,
yeah. But
the Michael Caine one is Man
And-
Who Would Be King, which is
yeah,
Afghanistan.
that's Afghanistan. Right.
Yeah. That's Alexander the Great.
Right.
Which, by the way, come on, Alexander the
No,
Great
it's
in
not.
Afghanistan. It is. Yeah.
The Man Who Would Be King.
Yeah. So they're in India. They go to Kafiristan, which is Afghanistan, because you have to go through the mountains to get there. And they think there's Sikandar, which is Alexander the Great, and so they think that they're what's it called with the the plane meets the thing with the fucking Masons. They think they're Masons, which Alexander the Great was a Mason, so they see the Masons, they think they're kings.
What's that, a club?
The Masons, Freemasons. Come on.
It's a club, right? It's a.
Are you kidding me? Freemasons. Come on.
Alexander the Great was a Freemason?
Well, that's in the movie. I don't know if it's for true.
Freemasons
But
can't. I
the
feel
man
like,
who would be king is about Peachy and Daniel, who go north to fucking Kafiristan to become kings. And that's what happens. And it's Afghanistan, and they go, and he gets his fucking head cut
That's
off.
a pretty good Michael Caine.
There we go.
I think your history's way off. But
Mm-mm.
anyway, I'll check it out.
No, that's the story. It's
so-
Kipling. It's Kipling.
Wait.
And the story is that they see Alexander the Great's thing, which was that they were Masons, so they become kings. And then when Roxanne bites him and sees blood, they're like, well, you're not a fucking god, so they cut the fucking head off.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
Like when you're on one of these shoots, like we see the footage that you get, which is, of course, a tiny percentage of
Yeah.
the time you actually spent there.
Yeah.
Like you're in Kandahar,
Yeah.
or you're in Monrovia,
Yeah,
you're in any of these fucking hellholes.
yeah.
I mean, you know, I know Trump's a bad person, and I certainly hate him and don't want him to be president. But, you know, shithole, it wasn't exactly wrong about places in this world. You're in a shithole.
Yeah.
What do you do during the downtime?
Jack off. Shut your mouth.
Wait, jack off?
Yeah, like it's a stress release. You're stressed to
But
fuck.
you can't do it all day.
Sort of. You
Really?
You sort of can.
And
I mean, there's a lot of waiting.
definitely,
you know,
I
there's a lot
understand.
of
I understand the waiting.
There's a lot of waiting for warlords. You're in a kind of a
Right.
shitty room. You've got no connectivity. You got no computer. You have no phone.
You have your dick.
You have your dick. Dick's always there, baby.
You have your dick and you have your mind.
Yeah, there you go. Just replaying shit.
And what are you jerking off to? That chick, I saw her eyes through the slit in her burqa.
Well, there's something called memory.
I know. I understand.
And no, look,
Right.
I mean, you know, some of the best times are actually hanging out with the crew. Shout out to Jake Burghardt, like the best DP ever. You hang out with the crew, you know, you eat some chicken to go back to the worst fucking GDP, the best fucking chicken. Liberia is a great chicken. Like you have some weird fucking chicken, which is gonna make you have the shits. And you spend a lot of time on the toilet, which explains the jacking off. There it is. I mean, what are you going to do? And, you know, you maybe do some writing, you do some reading. There's a lot of thinking, which is why when you're there, you do some good interviews because you're sitting there, you got to get metaphysical. Like to go back to your point, and you're a pretty fucking smart guy. You go to the metaphysical. You're like, well, let's get to what the questions are we should really ask. And so instead of just being like, why is the Taliban so mad at us? Like you're so fucked up and that you get in there and you're like, okay, let's talk about humanity.
Well,
Right.
once again, Shane, I have a very similar experience. I was making a movie in 1985 in Mexico called Club Med, and we
Yeah.
shot it at the Club Med, and
Yeah.
oh my God,
So
there was like weeks on
There was
it. And
cum everywhere.
I wasn't in the shot for like 2 weeks in a row. What am I going to do there?
yeah,
I mean, very often the tennis courts were so crowded we had to play doubles.
sure.
I mean, it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being, snorkeling. How many times can you look at the same blowfish? I mean, after a while, the whole fish was like, okay, why don't you take a picture, man? All right, I got to go back to my day job.
All right, bro.
This was so awesome. I'm so glad you're here with the crew.
Great to see you, man.
It's an
Thank
honor
you.
to have you
my honor.
on the Club Random, whatever it is. Oh, well, you know what? Let me read my...
Yeah, there we go.
often
Come on.
November 1st and 2nd at Vegas. The David Copperfield Theater at the MGM Grand. November 16th, the Beacon in New York. Oh my God, what a great. And then next day, Washington, D.C. That's there's only 4 more days you can see me live this year. The act is off the hook. You should go see it. November 17th is the theater at the MGM National Harbor in Washington, D.C. I think that might be in Maryland, but I may be wrong. They're all very close together there. Anyway, come out to see me. I may not be doing that much longer, and I'm having a ball doing it. And thank you. And
Club.
back to work.
Thank you, buddy.
Random.
Okay.
Thank you, bro. That was awesome.
So much fun.
That was really great.
We'll do it again.
Love you, man.
You too, pal.
Biggest fan.
Thank you.
I know you hear that a lot, but
Not from you.
I'm proud of what you do.
Random.